Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a new playthrough on the channel. You're probably looking at the board setup and you're thinking to yourself, Phoenix Knight, it's a little too early for Christmas in Arkham, isn't it? And my response to that is going to be, yes, it is too early for Christmas in Arkham, and that's part of the point tonight. As you may be able to recognize, we are going to be playing Fate of the Elder Gods by Greater Than Games. The idea behind this game is trying to get your Ancient Ones summoned, and you're probably wondering, if you're not a regular on the channel, Phoenix Knight, where's the link to Christmas in Arkham in that? The link to Christmas in Arkham comes in because Fate of the Elder Gods is the game that I use for Christmas in Arkham to determine the opponent for Christmas in Arkham. So I want to do a little bit of stream testing on that before we get anywhere near Christmas in Arkham, since I want to make sure that everything lays out to a point where I'm going to be okay streaming the tournament. Because I haven't completely decided yet if I'm going to be streaming the tournament or if I'm going to record the tournament. And looking at some of the technicals I was having earlier tonight, I might be recording the tournament, but we'll see how things lay out for this one. So we'll go through how a turn works nice and slowly, but first up let's meet our Ancient One. And I've purposely chosen an Ancient One that doesn't get much screen time, that won't be eligible for the Christmas in Arkham tournament, and I've chosen Dagon. His special ability when we go to the ceremony to activate that is the Innsmouth Look. Choose one location, roll a die for each investigator present at that location. For each tentacle or Cthulhu, destroy an investigator and place one of your cultists from your lodge onto that location. Summoning track starts up here at 0, and we want to get that all the way around to be able to summon our Ancient One. So now I can move that over. As you might see, my cultists are out there in red, so I'll be doing everything in red tonight. Then we have a little bit of setup once I finish getting my cultists set up on the lodge. Let me find my laser pointer here. We'll go through the locations starting from the other worlds, and I'll go through what they do, at least on the main action. So at the other worlds, when we're there, we can actually sacrifice our cultists to gain summon track process per tentacle or Cthulhu we roll on the summoning dice, and I'll explain more about how that works when we get into that. Then moving clockwise to the museum, we can pick up one of these two artifacts. So let's go ahead and reveal the first two artifacts for Dagon. First up we'll find Wizard's Grimoire. Maximum hand size is 5, and I think I know where I'm going first. Next up, the other artifact, True Magic. Exhaust, discard a spell in your reserve, then draw the top spell from the spell deck and immediately ready it for free. Okay, and then we've got the ceremony, which is where you can activate your Dark Gift, which we've gone through already with Dagon, and we get one of these gate cards, which we can use to move anywhere. If gaining gates this way, we can only have one gate per in the course of the game. Moving to the streets of Arkham is a little bit different than in the multiplayer, than in the solo game than the multiplayer game. So when we perform that, we return 2 investigators from the lodge back to the supply, and having control there, and I'll explain more about what control means as we get into the game, means we can sacrifice a cultist there to return an additional one, from the lodge back to the supply. Going over to the gathering, we gain 3 cultists and can move 1 anywhere. Then up to the library, draw 3 cards, and ready an additional spell this turn using the same astral symbols. So before we get into this playthrough, let's go through the spells that we have to start with. Spells will have 2 parts in this game. There will be the symbol that we use to move with them, and then the costs to ready them. So first up on a yellow, and we can see what color it is by the card on this side. Broken Seal, which takes 3 yellows. That's the cost up top. Destroy 1 Elder Sign, and you may sacrifice a cultist at the current altar location to destroy 1 more. That's not that useful. Let me look at the other yellow first, because I might be able to use these to move. Enlighten the Faithful, which takes blue, white, red. At the end of your turn, you may move up to 3 of your cultists from any one location to any other location. That would be useful later, but not at the start of the game. As for a red, we've got Gate to the Past. At the end of any other cult's turn, you may sacrifice 2 cultists from your current lodge to take the current location's basic action. So if there's a particular action that we like, we might be able to use that. Now, we've got 2 fate pieces out on the board. The reason for that is because we'll be controlling the dark fate piece that starts at the other worlds. The investigators in the solo game will control the light fate piece. That starts at the streets of Arkham. And then I'll explain everything else as we go through it, but I think we are all set to get into this game, so let's jump in. As I mused earlier doing, I'm going to discard the 2 yellows. You can discard 2 of the same color as a wild to move to a different to any location. In that case, I'm going to move over to the museum and immediately grab the Wizard's Grimoire. And then we'll replace that with, we place an investigator there and a cultist from the supply. And then we'll roll for temporary control. This is the tower I think I wanted to get when I needed a less imposing tower during Christmas in Arkham last year. We'll reveal the monsters as well, but I don't expect we'll be doing much with the monsters in this playthrough. We would need a Cthulhu here to get temporary control. That's a tentacle, though, so no temporary control. So I took the Wizard's Grimoire already, and then replacing that, the Lamp of Alhazred. Discard this to roll 3 dice. Gain an Elder Sign for each Elder Sign we roll, then immediately take another turn. Alright, with a blue and a green, I'm not preparing any spells there. Now, the reason the Wizard's Grimoire is so handy is because that makes my hand minimum up to, would be 3 normally, but it's 5 because I've got the Wizard's Grimoire. So when I draw spells at the end of the turn, I draw up to 5. So in this case, I'll be drawing 4 cards. We lose this game. I should probably mention also that we lose this game if we either take 10 Elder Signs or 5 curses. On a white, I have a Find Gate, taking a blue and a yellow. At the start of your turn, draw a gate card, regardless of whether or not I have one already. During the move phase, I have to use that gate card for movement. Then on a green, I've got a command, taking a purple and a white. Move a monster in a location or lodge to any other location or lodge. Then on a yellow, Call of the Wicked Ones, taking a red and 2 blue. Summon a monster and become cursed. Then on a white, Chorus the Innocent, taking green, blue, yellow. Move up to 2 investigators from any 1 location or lodge to any lodges. In this case, for the multiplayer game, it would be back to the supply. The investigators will discard on a green to move over to the gathering and place a cultist there, not at the streets of Arkham. The investigators don't want to go flying right now. Let's see. I will discard a red at the museum to move over to the library. That will let me draw 3 more cards, and I can ready an additional spell. Right now I'm just kind of fishing for options right now. So 1, 2, 3. On a white, I will find another Enlighten the Faithful, which I used for movement earlier. Then on a red, an Ancient Stirring, taking 3 red. Advance 1 on the summon track, and I may sacrifice a cultist at the current altar location to advance another 1. And on a yellow, Cubes of Power, taking red and white. When you're rolling dice, you may add 2 additional dice to this roll. Alright, I can ready an additional spell. Temporary control doesn't really do much for me. It would let me sacrifice a cultist from the library to ready a spell at no additional cost. That could actually be very useful. Then we place a cultist. The tentacle does not give me temporary control of the location. So, with that in mind, I will use there's an innate red there. It might be watching me send spells flying. It might be a little bit hard to see, but I'll see if I can move this out of the way. There is an innate red at the location, so I can use that when I'm preparing spells, which I will do here. I will prepare the aforementioned cubes of power. So that's in my reserve. And then I'll draw a card from the deck. On a red, I will find Enlighten the Investigators. Blue and a yellow. Cast when a cult discards a monster token. That cult places 2 investigators in their lodge. And then I never revealed these monsters. I don't expect we'll do much with them, though. First monster in the reserve is a hunting horror with 4 token symbols. Place the hunting horror on this card. On your turn, you may discard 1 token to place the hunting horror on any lodge. When a monster or cultists are added to the occupied lodge, roll a die for each. On a Cthulhu or a tentacle, destroy the investigator or monster or cultist, then return the hunting horror to this card. If the hunting horror returns to this card with no more tokens, remove the hunting horror from play. Next up, the Hound of Tyndalos. On your turn, you may discard a token to place the Hound of Tyndalos on the summon track of any lodge. The cult's summon track can't advance while being occupied by the Hound of Tyndalos. To remove the Hound of Tyndalos, the cult may either choose to become cursed or visit the ceremony and remove the Hound of Tyndalos instead of activating their Ancient One's Dark Gift. The Hound of Tyndalos is then returned to this card. The Hound of Tyndalos is removed from play when it returns to this card with no more tokens. I'll have to think of some ways I can actually use that on a house rule. Anyway, we will draw... I think we drew the Enlighten the Investigators already. Okay. Now, the investigators at the... Let me move the tower out of the way. The investigators at the gathering are trying to discard a red to move to the library, but since I'm there already, instead, they will move to the other worlds, and I'll get my first curse. 5 of those, and I lose the game. Oop. Goes at the location that they landed at. As for me, choose 1 location, roll... Actually, I think I will discard a white at the library to move over to the ceremony. Mostly so I can trigger Dagon's Dark Gift. So I'll put a cultist out and an investigator. Then we'll bring the dice tower back in shot so I can roll for temporary control. And honestly, I think everything on this layout looks pretty good as I'm looking at it. I was having some technical problems earlier. I don't get temporary control. I was having some technical problems earlier, but I think I've got those pretty well sorted. I seem to have those pretty well sorted at this point. I just let the stream starting screen run for a little bit longer. So I get the gate card, and I can trigger Dagon's Dark Gift, and I will choose the other worlds. So we'll bring the tower in shot, and they've got 2 investigators there. So for each cultist or Cthulhu I roll, I can destroy an investigator and place 1 of my cultists from my lodge on that location. We'll move the dice tower so we can see that there are 2 investigators there. The investigators are the gray minis. That's one tentacle, so I can destroy an investigator and place a cultist there. Apparently the investigator discovered that they had the Innsmouth look. And then with a white and a blue, I don't have anything there that I'm preparing. No, I do not. All right, then I will draw on a blue Shadow Walk, which takes 2 red and a white. At the end of your turn, you may sacrifice 1 cultist and become cursed to immediately take another turn. They're coming for me. Aren't they always coming for us in the Cthulhu mythos, Jester? Discarding a white at the other worlds as they're trying to move to the ceremony again, but since they were already at the other worlds, they moved to the streets of Arkham, put an investigator out, and I already take my second curse. Joy. Okay. Next, I think we're going to discard a green at the ceremony to move over to the gathering. Once again, a native green there. Then I'll place a cultist there. I've got to try to get some guys back into my lodge. That's part of why I'm going to over to the gathering. There are 3 cultists at the gathering now, but I don't take them until I move back over there. Then I'll bring the tower in shot so I can roll for temporary control. The lesser elder sign does not give me temporary control, which means I'll get 3 cultists back from the abyss, and I can move 1 to any location. Move 1 from the gathering to any location. So I'm going to move 1 cultist up to the other worlds. With a green and 2 red, I highly doubt that there's anything I'm preparing there. If that was a white, I could prepare Shadow Walk, but I'm not preparing anything there. So on a green, I will find the stars are right, taking a red and 2 blue. Assign each cult, including yours, one of the following. Lose an elder sign, gain 2 cultists from the abyss, gain 2 investigators, become cursed. That's more of a multiplayer gotcha card. The investigators are then discarding a white at the streets of Arkham to move over to the ceremony, placing another investigator there. Now I could use the gate potentially. What's up at the other worlds? Wild, 2 yellow, 2 white. Is there anything there I'd want to prepare right now? No. But I think we will discard the gate at the gathering, hoping to get back there sooner rather than later, because I've got this ancient stirring that I wouldn't mind preparing. That will move me up to the other worlds, placing a cultist and an investigator. The threshold for control in this game is 3 cultists and more, but temporary control is a thing. But I have 4 cultists at the other worlds, so I control the location outright. At the other worlds, I get to roll a die per cultist there, and for every Cthulhu I roll there, because I have control of the location, I get to return a cultist. They would normally go to the abyss, but I get them back in my lodge instead. So let's see what kind of progress I can make on the summon track. Wow, that's a pretty good roll. So I get to sacrifice 3. I get to sacrifice 3 cultists, and I get 2 of them back because I rolled 2 Cthulhus, but that will let me make 3 on my summon track. So Dagon's already 3 into being summoned. With a wild, 2 white, and 2 yellow, I'm not preparing anything there, but I've got a green, should I be able to move back to the gathering again. On a yellow, I will draw. Power Surge taking a purple, and it has to be a purple specifically. When you're preparing spells, 2 of the same color does not count for purposes of spell preparation, unlike it would if we were trying to move. So it has to be an explicit purple. For instance, I could go to the gathering and prepare that spell, but I'm probably not going there. The investigators will discard a white at the ceremony. They're trying to move there, so they would have to move to the other worlds, except I'm there already, so they move to the streets of Arkham, which puts another cultist there and gives me my 3rd curse. So I'm already 3/5 of the way to losing this game. It's a good thing this is one where I don't necessarily care about the win. I'm more checking how the layout looks when I'm getting ready to decide what I want to do with Christmas in Arkham this year for the tournament. Now, at the other worlds, I will discard the stars are right to move over to the gathering. In this case, since there are 3 investigators there, I do take them onto my lodge, but I won't get raided until the 5th die, until I get 5 on my lodge. Cultist goes there, and an investigator there as well. I'll roll a die for temporary control. The Greater Elder Sign means I do not get temporary control, but I will get 3 cultists back from the lodge, and I'll send 1 up to the other worlds. And then with green, 2 red, and a wild, I can only prepare 1 spell per turn unless an effect says otherwise. In this case, I will use I'll use the 2 red and the wild as a red to prepare, and I'll immediately be casting an Ancient Stirring. So I will advance 1 on my summon track, and I'll sacrifice 1 to advance again. So I'm up to 5 on the summon track. That goes to the discard pile. The investigators will discard a blue at the streets of Arkham to move over to the museum and put another investigator out. As for me, I could stop the raid if I move to the streets of Arkham, because that would let me return 2 cultists back, but I'd still have 4 on my lodge. I am not crazy about that idea in the slightest. So, I wonder if I just bite the bullet and take the raid. Although the problem is, if I bite the bullet and take a raid, and get too many Elder Signs here, let me tip the camera down. It might be a little bit hard to see, but we'll bring the camera over just a touch to see that if I take too many Elder Signs, when my summon starts from here and works clockwise, Elder Signs would start from here and work counterclockwise. So if I end up getting to a point where my Elder Signs meet my summon progress, I would take another curse. In this case, that would be my 4th curse, and I can only take 2 more before I lose the game. So I need to be very, very careful about that. Anyway, we'll bring the camera back over to the altar, as the game board is called in this game, while I decide what I want to do here. I've got a red and a yellow up at the library. The problem is none of my spells are particularly good right now. Let's see, that's 1 of each color at the... Which I actually could prep Enlighten the Faithful with that. I think it's worth the risk, though, so I will discard a yellow at the Gathering. Actually, the gate should be gone as well, because I used it to prepare the Ancient Stirring. So I'll move over to the streets of Arkham, discarding a yellow at the Gathering, which will give me the 3 investigators. They will get we'll put a cultist and an investigator out there. I'll roll for temporary control. I could really use it here to get another investigator off of the lodge. The Cthulhu, it might be a little bit hard to see in there, but the Cthulhu roll in there means I will get temporary control of the location. So I will be able to sacrifice a cultist at the location. I will return 2 cultists two investigators back to the supply, and then I'll sacrifice 1 at the streets of Arkham to return another one. So that'll shut the raid off. And then with 1 of each there, I'll use the blue, yellow, and green to prepare Enlighten the Faithful. At the end of my turn, I can move up to 3 of my cultists from any one location to another location. So all of that gets discarded. And then let me check my hand size. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm drawing 1, which brings me back up to 5. On a green, I will find Transmogrify, taking a white and a yellow. That's what the cost is at the top of the card. Change any 1-rolled die to any face. If the new die is Tentacle or Cthulhu, I become cursed. So I probably am not going to want to cast that. Or I'm probably not going to want to cast that, even though it's mitigation. The investigators will discard a red card at the museum to move over to the library and place... Oh, that's at the end of my turn. Derp. Oh, well. And they'll put a cultist or investigator at the library. Let's see. I do have 3 to return. So I will discard a green at the streets of Arkham to move over to the Gathering, which will put a cultist down and another investigator. Temporary control doesn't really do much for me here, because it would let me move all of my cultists to the same location. Actually, it would let me move all of them from the Gathering. That's another Cthulhu, so I do get temporary control of the location. So I gain 3 back. And I'll move this one up to the other world, because why not? And then with the green and yellow there, I actually do have enough there to prepare a Find Gate. So at the start of my turn, I'll draw a gate card when I cast it. During the move phase, I have to use it for movement, though. And then I'll be drawing 2 cards up to 5. On a white, I'll find Necessary Evil, taking a purple and a yellow. Gain 2 Elder Signs or retreat 1 on my summon track to destroy all curses on me. That yellow's gone. And on a blue, Cubes of Power, taking a white and a blue this time. And then at the end of my turn, I'll actually remember to cast Enlighten the Faithful. So at the end of my turn, since it is the end of my turn, I can move up to 3 of my cultists from any one location to any other location. I'm going to move from the museum up to the other worlds. The investigators will then discard a blue at the library to move back up to the museum and put another cultist out. I have to be careful because if the supply runs out of cultists, then we trigger a raid instantly. Now I'm going to remember... Actually, do I want to cast Find Gate now, or... I definitely want to get up to the other worlds because I can use the purple there to prepare Necessary Evil and reset my curses. So I think I will... Is there a pair I can discard here? That won't trigger a raid, so I think I will go ahead and cast Find Gate. So I'll draw a gate card for movement, but I'll have to use that for movement this turn, which I'm fine with. I will go up to the other worlds, which will place another cultist and an investigator. Remember, there are 3 investigators out there now, but there weren't when I moved there, so I don't take the cultists now. Or the investigators now. And since I have 6 investigators, or since 6 cultists up at the location, I do control the location outright. So for every Cthulhu I roll when I'm trying to roll to sacrifice, I will get to return one of those cultists back to the lodge. I wouldn't mind seeing most of these go back to the Abyss, though. That is that's a must return. So I have 6 dice, 1 per cultist there. I'm actually at 5 right now, so if I roll 4 summons, I do summon Dagon, and the game ends. Is the stream still live, I wonder? Yes, the stream is still live. Okay. I was having some problems when I streamed Momentum Football on Sunday, I think it was, where the stream blipped on me and I had to re-upload the entire thing. So let's see what happens here. That is actually just enough. So that's 4, which means I would sacrifice 4 cultists, 2 of which would return to my lodge, and then for the 4, I would advance 1, 2, 3, 4 on the summon track, and Dagon would get summoned. In the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament, that would be an amazing performance. You're fine, you hear me, and yes, it's still going fine. Good to know. Like I said, I had some problems on Sunday when I was streaming Momentum Football, so I just wanted to... I was also doing a little bit of a quality check on this. So yeah, that is a playthrough of Fate of the Elder Gods in a nutshell. Everything looked pretty good on layout here, so I probably could stream the tournament this year, especially at least the first couple of groups that I normally do. Well, especially if I do a couple groups on Thanksgiving Day while my turkey's cooking. I could very easily come in here after I get the bird cooking and stream a group in the tournament. So that's definitely food for thought. But that will do it for this playthrough of Fate of the Elder Gods. I'm starting to ramble on this at this point. As far as what's coming up on the channel, once I close out this stream, I'm going to be setting up tomorrow's video. And I grabbed the wrong notebook. Tomorrow's video is going to be of Interceptor Ace by Compass Games. I grabbed my Night Fighter Ace notebook. I need my Interceptor Ace notebook, so hold on while I grab that down. I know it's in here somewhere. America Bomber. Tally Ho. Interceptor Ace Volume 2. Silent Victory, that's not it. Probably one of these hiding over here then. Where is it? Defending America, America Bomber. It can't have disappeared on me. SOE Lysander, Guadalcanal, the Hunters. What did I do with my Interceptor? Well, oh, here it is. I just found my Interceptor Ace notebook. I forgot it was one I had the label on the inside of because it was a weird place. Well, looking forward to when you get it on the Table Jester. Maybe if I can find a module for this on TTS, maybe I'll have you give me a hand with the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament this year, but that remains to be seen. Anywho, as I mentioned, tomorrow's video, I'm going to be setting up Interceptor Ace Volume 1 by Compass Games. Saturday, Mystical Munchies will continue out of the official Diablo cookbook with the side, Hoodwinked Honey Carrots. Next week, on Sunday next week, the fall campaign will continue in Astro Knight's Eternity as we take on the second scenario. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.